it's very, very complicated. I could talk about this for hours, but I don't want to bore you.
No, well, it's certainly not boring. The interesting thing is, when it comes to the American public, again, we're in Israel, but obviously I lived in the United States for quite a bit of time. When it comes to defectors, or whatever you want to call the people that leave Cuba, the most famous story, obviously, Elian Gonzalez, I believe, is 1999. And when that issue came up, when the father said, "I want him back," Americans say, "Well, we're kind of like, why would the kid want to go back?" That's the same. This is America, and that's Cuba. And then people said in America, well, we don't have a right to dictate and say which country is better. And it was a whole complicated issue where the father said, "I want the child back," and people said, well, he must be forced to say that. It's very frustrating. The another angle, two of the most, quote, defectors that we know of all the sporting world, be Livan Hernandez, who played for the Marlins, won a World Series in 1997, and Orlando Hernandez, obviously they're related, brothers there, played for the Yankees. And one of the ironies they used to bring up, these were two great playoff pitchers, obviously arguably the best of their era. Part of the reason they had such greatness in the playoffs was, hey, they went on a raft on an ocean and left Cuba. So throwing a baseball in front of 60,000 people is not going to scare them, playoffs or not playoffs. So is Rigo at some point going to be the most famous defector if he continues on what he's doing, and even more famous than Livan and Orlando Hernandez?
Well, I mean, like El Duque, like you're talking about, one of the interesting things he said that struck me is when he was asked what it was like to pitch in front of Yankee Stadium, he laughed and he said, "It's nothing what it is to pitch in front of a Havana crowd." That's what these guys are facing, is they can't get what they get in Cuba, in America, and they miss it. They're stuck. Because, they can't get the money that they get in America, but that part of their heart that's back home, those people, those connections, it's just not there in American society for these people. And so I think it's going to be very difficult for Rigo to try and make a life in the United States. I mean, just to get onto that raft, I mean, who paid for it? How much does he owe to that person who paid for it? How much money is being taken off the top from the people who paid for it? I mean, it's a kind of a question, is it better to be a slave to Fidel Castro or a slave to the people who can run boxing in capitalist America? And it looks pretty tough both ways, I have to say. I mean, he's not having an easy time in America. There's a lot of forces against him that would not be able to operate in Cuba. There's no gambling in Cuba, so all that money I risk to keep going with the film, that wouldn't be possible over there. And so I think it's a real damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario for these guys if they leave, because they definitely want the life they had back there in many ways. They just want more money in order to live, to look after themselves. And, one of the things that a boxing coach told me was the greatest source of pride for a Cuban is to be a father, and the greatest source of shame is not to be able to support your son. That's very, very tough thing, because I've never seen family dynamics like there is in Cuba. It's amazing. And a lot of the filming that I'm doing, Cubans have criticized me, saying that I'm trying to show the suffering of Cubans. And I mean, there is a lot of sadness, but if you're crying over there, most of the time it's because you see things you've just never seen anywhere else on earth, of the way human beings are relating to each other. And sometimes it is for the struggle. But then I think, how many times have I cried walking in the streets where I come from? Never. And that's the issue. Is it better to have a numb heart being in our system or to have a sore heart being in their system? And I can't answer that. That's for anybody else to try and figure out. But for me, there's definitely a very mixed bag to being back there. It's just that you just can't get it anywhere else. And any Cuban will tell you it.
Well, it's some great points and a lot of stuff to think about. And one last question before I let you go. I know 45% of the footage was taken, but when's the due date for the documentary? When could we go out and see it?
Well, what I'm going to do is your listeners can check out HeroTraitorMadness.com. We're going to have a trailer up. I just finished cutting it before I went off to Ireland, so we should have something up very, very shortly that has looked pretty good. I showed it to Leon Gass, who did When We Were Kings, and we thought we've got something very special. So I'm glad we've got something to show people, because I get a lot of questions about what the hell are you doing over in Cuba. So I would like to finish everything. I'm going back to Cuba for another month in a couple weeks. I hope we can get the whole thing done by, I don't know, maybe the end of the summer, midsummer, end of the summer.
All right, great. Well, we're certainly looking forward to that. It's going to be an awesome documentary, and I can hear your voice. You certainly care about Rigo. You've gotten very close to him, and I think that really shows in this interview. And I'm sure that documentary is going to have that feel where, we want the best for Rigo and a character that we can really gravitate to.
I mean, he's not the most accessible kind of guy, but I think the reason he's not is because there's a big heart there inside this guy, and aside from he just happens to be Mozart with boxing gloves, and most boxing fans are not into classical music, so they don't care if he's a genius, but he is, and yet I think behind it is a real story that can, get to the heart of this struggle between the United States and Cuba, and give it some dimension from an unusual lens to kind of penetrate the heart of both the Cuban dream and the American dream. And if that's of interest to people, I think they might be pleasantly surprised with some of the stuff I've gotten out of it, with some humble efforts to just, and not a lot of money, just to track down the best I can what's going on with this situation and let them speak for themselves without trying to judge anybody. Just really let the people speak for themselves, and that's what I've tried to do.
Well, Brin-Jonathan Butler, thank you so much for on IsraelSportsRadio.com, and continued success. I know you hit a bit of a low point, if you will, a snag, if you will, but you bounced back up with that huge gamble. So continue going in the right direction, and we look forward to speaking with you real soon.
Thanks so much, Ari. Take care.
All right, be well. That was Brin-Jonathan Butler, and he is making the documentary about Rigo, and I cannot wait to watch it. And I don't watch too many movies, but I will certainly watch that documentary. We're going to take a quick break. We'll play a little song, Sultans of Swing, and we'll be back with Joe Robbins right after this.